Veve becomes more popular, there's going to be more people buying on the marketplace. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about when is the best time to buy to take advantage of the opportunities that you see every single week on the market, but may just not take notice of them. So let's get started. Welcome in everyone, my name is Andy and I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come and watch this video on the channel. Just before we get going, if you are enjoying the content and you want to support me further, you can hit the subscribe button, and if you want to support me even further than that, you can join the membership down below. Alright, the market on Veve moves in waves, and some of you who are maybe just coming onto this platform might not truly understand that just yet, or even some of you who've been on here for a while might still not just get that the market does move and trends for certain reasons. It's not to say retractions and increases happen at random times, because of course that happens. There's someone with £1 million who just decides to come in and spend it all on Veve. Something is going to shift just for that reason, but for the most part, trends happen in particular ways. I'm going to tell you some of the best times that you can buy on the app, as well as the most active times and the least active times for you to potentially find some deals when other people aren't looking. There's a reason why you need to pay attention to the waves that go on, because often you can find yourself buying in at the all-time high and holding the bag because people are FOMOing in incredibly hard. It's not to say that holding the bag is a bad thing. For instance, I bought in at Superman back in the day when he was 600 gems, and some of you are going to be looking at me now thinking 600 gems is an absolute steal, Andy. At the time, Superman actually went back down to 200 gems and stayed there for around 3 months or so after me buying him for 625 gems. Now, that is an absolute steal in regards to Superman, but at the time, it left me holding the bag because I didn't understand the market fluctuations the way I do now. Let's go into a few of them, and there's 4 different ones that I'm going to be talking about, and then I'm just going to give you some information behind them and maybe how to actually understand why this is the case. And the first one is the announcement wave. Now, the announcement wave happens when, as it sort of says, an announcement comes onto Veve, onto the platform, and people realize that, hey, we can get into this, we need to sell off some stuff so that my gems are ready and liquid to actually buy these NFTs once they come out. If you look on the screen right now, I'm going to show you an example of why this is the case and why people sell off. So on January the 22nd at around 5 PM my time, the Mickey and Friends NFT collection got announced. So this was around 5 PM on January the 22nd. Now if we look at Deadpool on January the 22nd around 6 PM, we can see it was around 206, between 198 and 206 gems. But over the next few hours, Deadpool went all the way down to 166 gems. And this was because people were selling off their collectibles in order to get liquid for this new announcement that was coming. Now, we didn't have any other information other than these were coming on January the 22nd, and this was the time that people wanted to sell off. Again, we can see with Superman here, on October the 27th was when the partnership with Disney was actually announced. This wasn't to do with anything coming out, this was just telling us that the Disney partnership was there. And here we can see that steady decrease over the next coming weeks, just with the partnership being announced alone. This is people getting their gems ready for what's to actually come, and it's very important to take note that when big announcements happen, people are going to sell off fairly quickly in order to get liquidity for their account and actually being able to buy in with these. But for me, this isn't the best time to buy. And this leads us on to the second one, and that is the Medium article wave. This wave is just, again, like it sounds, when the Medium article drops, telling us exactly what we're going to be getting, what we need to be saving for, and how many additions there are going to happen within this drop. When this occurs, this is often the time when most people sell off, as they now understand exactly what's going to be coming and when it is going to be coming. Usually at this time as well, we often get the thing on the Veve app where it tells us this is the upcoming drop. So for all the people who don't use Twitter, Medium, Discord, or anything like that, this is when they usually find out that something is coming and what's actually coming. We don't often get all the details on the app, that comes out a little bit later on, but we can see that when the Medium article drops, there's often a dip in prices. The example we're going to look at here is the Disney Golden Moments when Homer and Bart were announced. Now, they were announced on November the 5th, releasing on November the 7th. And what we've sort of said here is sometimes the pattern goes where a quick retraction happens, bounce back occurs. I was hoping to show you this with the most recent lenticular cards. The issue with this is when they actually released the Medium article, the app was going down because we were moving to Ethereum chain. So I can't actually show you the bounce back and the retraction that happened just because the market wasn't actually there. So I'll bring it to a time that makes it easier just to understand for more people. But if we look at the common Spider-Man, at the time of the drop of the article, it was sitting at around 100 gems or so. Now, that obviously seems like a deal now, but back then that was quite a high price for it. We get the article dropping on November the 5th, and over the next 2 days coming up to the November the 7th, we saw a price drop to around 79 gems. So dropping around 20 gems, which is quite a lot, as again, in regards to the actual percentage price drop, that's quite high considering only a 2-day period before having a little bit of a bounce back on the next day up to about 87. Now at this point, people were waiting on the other Disney drops, but this retraction and bounce back happens for a lot of the medium articles. For ones that people class as maybe grails or future grails, this impact might not be the same. As for the things like the golden moments now, when drops maybe like the Killer Croc happened, the dip would not have been the same unless that was something bigger like Disney, like Marvel, and something that really is sought after. Now we can actually see this happen in some sort of way when it comes to the Batman versus Croc statue. And again, we're going to take the Amazing Spider-Man. I still class this as something that won't move as much as others, but it's still interesting to see and just take note of price actions and price movements when things occur. So Batman versus Killer Croc was announced on January the 21st. It was later on in the afternoon that was actually announced, and it didn't release until January the 23rd. And this again was released later on in the day. So if we take here from around January the 21st, later on in the night, we can see we're around 1,100 gems until January the 23rd for when it was released. We're talking it went down to around 916 gems. So from 1,100 to 916, averaging out at that price, then we're seeing a dip of near enough 200, 250 gems. And after Batman versus Killer Croc is out, we're seeing that spike up, back up to the price that it was at before. Now, it's not to say it doesn't take retractions after that again, but people do tend to buy in after this wave happens. And this is where you can make some profit if you're smart and looking to get out quickly, especially on things like 2.5% tax when you can actually do that. These are a little bit harder to do is because the most recent drops haven't been able to show us the big hits when it comes to it. Disney was a big hit and it's a little bit further back, so I don't want to do something that's months behind because the market does shift in ways when new users come onto the platform. But again, let's look at Invisible Woman's Secret Rare. On January the 21st was when Batman vs Killer Croc was announced. She was sitting at around 1,600 gems at the time. Until the 23rd, she went all the way down to about 1,400 gems, and then we started to see a little bit of a rise up again as we got from January the 24th onwards, as people were then buying back into things that they may have sold off to get into this new drop. I really wish I could show this with the lenticular cards, but the market was just down at that time and we don't actually have that. Now again, it's not to say that a drop doesn't happen after this, totally fine, but what we're discussing here is the medium article drop wave and what people do when the medium article comes out. They sell off in order to get the gems to buy into whatever's new and flashy and using the recency effect, and then after it's over, later on in January the 23rd, we start to see quite a little bit of a rise back up to the prices it was sitting at before the drop announcement for the medium article had come out. This might be a little bit challenging to take note of fully, and I understand that it'll be quite hard to establish exactly how much of a percentage drops, but this video is just to give you a little bit more insight to the waves that happen in the market, even if they're only small waves, because this will allow you to just understand when the best time to buy is for yourself. The third one we're going to talk about is what we'd sort of discussed just there, and that was the post-wave drop. Now again, if we look at Invisible Woman on here, we can see that after the drop on January 23rd, so it would have been around at this point, we saw quite a spike back up, about 150 to 200 gem increase. Over the next coming days, we saw her go back up to the same price she was at before. Again with Spider-Man, after January 23rd, later on at the drop, we can see here at 195, all the way back up to 1,100. This is just after the drop, the market's open, people are starting to buy back in, but again, we're seeing a retraction after that. I'm talking right after the drop, what people are doing. They're FOMOing back into the things they sold. They're seeing things were on a deal before this drop happened. They may have not got the drop or not have the gems to get the drop, and therefore are buying into what they class as deals on the market at that point. So people are FOMOing in after the drop has just happened because they've got the gems ready to go. They've seen some deals in the market. People are FOMOing back in and driving that price back up for things that people are after. This happens for a lot of the drops. People are trying to spend their gems on what they've saw as deals over the last few days as people sold their stuff in order to get the most recent drop. I hope that made sense, but I might have not. This is what leads me on to the final sort of wave that you're going to be needing to pay attention to when it comes to Veve, and this is the drop items themselves. It's going to be kind of hard to show on a Komi Wiki as it doesn't do it in smaller increments than a couple hours, but it still is important to take note of in what happens. So usually when the drop occurs and all the additions have been given out to people, the market opens back up. The problem is not everyone gets their additions right at the same time, and the market opens up at different times when a select percentage is actually given. So if we go on the basis that 100% of all the drops and all the additions are given out before the market opens, what we usually see is a massive sell-off right away as all the flippers are trying to get rid of it and get the most return on investment that they can as buyers are buying in. So we find a support level usually about 20 to 30 minutes after the market is opened, especially if all the additions are given out, majority are given out. However, at this time, if only 20 or 30% are actually given out, there's usually more buyers than there are flippers, as there's only a small percentage of people who have actually got the drop delivered that are flippers. This means the support levels happen higher than usual, and therefore you're often paying a premium for these things because there's more buyers than there are sellers. This means the support levels are going to be a lot higher, and that can drive up the price further. And we actually saw this with lenticular cards. You can see on the screen right here that Mini started at around 580 gems, but dipped to about 445. This was around an hour after the market had actually opened, but we did see quite a sharp rise again as more people bought in. Fell off again is what I'm guessing because more additions were delivered after this period of time, because the lenticular cards had about 5 or 6 hours before all of them were delivered. But after this, once they're all delivered, the flippers have got out, the buyers are buying in, that's when we start to see a steady increase in the price. Even though there's some dips here and there, we're seeing a fairly steady increase in the price of it, moving up as it continues to do so over the next few days. This is really important to take note of and what can happen. Why I think the actual drop collectible wave is the hardest to judge, because you have to look at the additions that have actually dropped, the percentage of flippers who are actually flipping, the people who are buying into it, because for example, if we're taking the most recent drop with the Pilly Fantasy, there's not as many collectors wanting to buy into those the same way they would Disney. So therefore you have to look at popularity and demand of these collectibles, the price actions that they are taking, what people are willing to buy and sell at, and a lot more. I would never recommend buying right after the market opens. My recommendation is maybe waiting a day or two in order to see what is really solidifying at and what the support levels are going to. There's nothing wrong with buying in right away, as sometimes you can actually make the best decision. For example, with the partner statue, buying in right away was the best decision, as you were able to get it at the cheapest that it would ever be at this moment in time anyway. However, for some other things, maybe like the Marvel Mighties, it's probably best to wait a couple days to see what they're actually going to fluctuate at. Sometimes you're going to be wrong, but more often or not, you're going to be able to hold off just to see the patience and that it will actually pay off. If we actually take the example of lenticular cards, we can see that Mini started around 580. And if you'd have bought in it there, then that was the first time that the market was opened. If you waited maybe a day or so to buy in, you could have potentially got around 405 gems, 475 gems, and just held from there. And that was a day after the drop had happened, the support levels were going on, and you were able to understand exactly what people are pricing these at right now. As of right now, we've saw an increase, but we did see a dip again in Mini at 570 gems. So although you waited a day and bought in at 440, say, you're still making profit in regards to this, and I do still see this rising quite heavily over the next coming months. The final thing I want to say is a tip from Komi Wiki himself, who told us that Saturday at 7 AM GMT is the quietest time on the wiki, so it's probably on Veve too, and the best time to sell is on Wednesday at 9 PM GMT, as that's when most people are on Komi Wiki, which likely correlates to Veve itself, and most people are paying attention to the market. So that was a little bit of a pro tip from Komi Wiki themselves on when to buy and when to sell. I know this video might have been a bit longer than I'd hoped it would. I'm not actually sure what it will be after I've edited it all, but I do hope that you've got some valuable information when it comes to the markets and sort of when maybe a best time for you is actually buying. Everyone's going to be different. Some people just want to FOMO right away into the collectibles that they love, as they're going to be holding it for years on end. But if you're someone who's looking to flip, you need to understand the market a little bit further, why drops happen, why sudden retractions and bounce backs occur, and just being better at investing in general. It's not to say that you're always going to be right. I'm not always going to be right. I'm just trying to lead you on to the different market trends that happen and maybe why they actually occur at certain times in certain ways. I'd love for you to let me know down below your thoughts on the market trends. If they move in the ways that you presume, or there's something that I maybe missed that we should be paying attention to. Be sure to let me know down below. I know the video on the screen right now will be something you'll love to watch. Have a fantastic day.